In this session, we will discuss about what is an array. So why we require an array? We know that if we want to store something, we have to declare a variable. So let's think about a situation where we need to store 100 roll numbers. Then we need to declare the 100 variables to keep track of the 100 students. But as we all know, it is not practical to declare 100 variables to store these 100 values. So instead of declaring roll number 1, roll number 2, roll number 3, etc., we can directly declare a single variable called as roll within square brackets 100, in which roll 1, roll 2, etc. are considered as individual variables. So this form of representing a variable is called as an array. That is, a single variable represents a lot of values. So how an array can be declared and what is the memory layout of an array? That is what we are going to see next. So syntax of array declaration is the data type, array name within bracket size. For example, int num within bracket 5 semicolon. So what does it mean? It means that your array name is num, which means that the variable name is num, which is capable of holding 5 values. Okay, 5 values can be stored in the variable name num, and what kind of values can be stored, that is mentioned by the data type. So here it means that you are able to store 5 integer values. This is how the memory arrangement is done. So when you declare int num of 5, 5 consecutive memory locations will be allocated in memory and will be named as num of 0, num of 1, num of 2, num of 3, and num of 4. So this within bracket, this is called as index of an array. So normally index of an array starts from 0. Okay, so it means that from num of 0 to num of 4, you are able to store 5 elements. So now we will come into the definition of an array. Array is a fixed size, sequenced collection of elements of same data type. You are able to store elements of same data type only, and the elements are stored sequentially in consecutive memory locations. And so we have learned so many data types, primary data types like int, float, then char, etc. Array is actually a derived data type. Why? Because array, how will you declare an array? As int. So array is a derived data type. Already we have some primary data types. So from that we are deriving a data type for the array. Okay. And there are three kinds of arrays. You can have one-dimensional array, which means that you are mentioning only one size. Okay, then you can have two-dimensional array. That is, if you want to store some table data, then it is possible to declare an array as two-dimensional. So you can store the data row-wise and column-wise. And you can have more multi-dimensional arrays. Okay. So how this array can be initialized, how these values are getting initialized in an array. It is possible to initialize an array during compile time as well as during runtime. Compile time means while writing the program, you are going to initialize the values to an array. Okay. So example, also not example, how will you initialize array syntax? The data type, array name, size. Within curly brace, you will provide the list of values. So int num3 it is equal to 12 comma 22 comma 6 means that num of 0 will be assigned with 12, num of 1 will be assigned with 22, and num of 2 will be assigned with 6. Now these are the 3 points which we have to keep in mind while initializing an array during compile time. For example, float marks 5, which means that you are capable of holding 5 elements, and you have initialized with 24.0. So marks of 0 will be initialized with 24.0, marks of 1 19.5, marks of 2 45, and marks of 3 will be 0.0, marks of 4 will be 0.0. That is the value, if you are not mentioning in the bracket, they will be by default stored as 0.0 if the data type is float. Okay, if it was int, it will be a 0, and if it was a char, it will be null. Okay, and if you're initializing during compile time, then it is possible to omit your size int a of Even if you didn't mention the size here, from this initialization, the size will be automatically updated. Okay, so which means that int a of size, which is equal to 10, 26, 11, 8, isn't it? Which means that size will be 4. It will be automatically updated. Int number of 3 is equal to 5, 8, 9, 11. It is illegal. You are capable of holding only 3 elements and you are trying to assign with 4 elements. So it is illegal. Now, it is possible to initialize an array during runtime also. Okay, for example, by using an array, you require a loop for initializing the values to an array. So for I is equal to 0, I less than 100, I plus plus. If your value of I is less than 50, okay, then you have initializing an array, sum of I, initially I value is 0, so sum of 0 will be assigned with 0.0. So for all the I values less than 50, so for 0 to 59, your sum of 0 to 49 will be 0.0, and from sum of 50 to 99, it will be initialized with a 1.0, isn't it? Yes. Now int x of 3, then using scanf you are assigning the values x of 0, x of 1, x of 2. Since it is only 3 values, it is possible to do that using scanf, but if we have more than 3 values, then you have to provide the statement inside a loop. Okay, yes. Now we will see some programs, how you will read and display an array of size n. Okay, so the question is to declare an array of size n and read the values to it and then display it. So as the first statement will be hash include stdio.h void main, and you have declared n, which is nothing but the size of the array. Then you have to declare an array with maximum size, for example 20. It doesn't mean that you will be using 20, but you are reserving 20. That is why the array are called as static memory allocation. It is not possible to allocate array after knowing the size. Okay, then a of 20, then I, looping variable I. So enter the size of the array. You have mentioned the array size as n. So for I is equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus. The first element you have to store in a of 0. So scanf percentage d ampersand a of I. So first element, in order to mention it as enter the element 1, you are mentioning as 0 plus 1. Initially I is 0, 0 plus 1. So enter the element 1, you will be storing the first element in a of 0, and then I plus plus, so I becomes 1, second element will get into a of 1, like that until I becomes your n minus 1. Okay, then once all the elements are stored in the array, you have to print it. So printf entered array is for I is equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus, printf percentage d slash d a of I. So every elements will be printed one by one. So this is how you will be storing and displaying the array values. Now, how will you read and display an array in the reverse order? That is, you will be reading the array and then you have to display it in the reverse order. So, how will you read the values? As we have seen in the last program, you will be reading the array size, and from the use of the loop, you will be reading the values to a of I. And once you obtain this a of I, you have to print this a of I in the reverse order. So, you know that from the last location, you have to print. So, not reverse order, I'm sorry, this is even numbers. Yeah, this is the question. This is the question. Yes. So enter the array in the reverse order. You know that the last location will be n minus 1, size minus 1, because it is from 0 to n minus 1. You are going to store the element values. So for I, index will be for I is equal to n minus 1, I greater than or equal to 0, I have to be decremented, and then that value has to be printed. Printf percentage d a of I. This is how we are printing the values in the reverse order. The next one was to print and display even numbers in an array. You have to read an array, and then you have to store some values into an array, and then from that array you have to display the even numbers. So you read the array size, you read the numbers using the loop, and how will you check whether an entered number is an even number or not? You put a loop inside this. For I is equal to 0, I less than n, the size. I plus plus, you check every element is obtained as a of I. A of, so initially a of 0 is modulus 2 is checked. If it is 0, then you have to print it. Otherwise, what you have to do, I will be incremented. Next index will be taken. A of 1 will be taken. If that is divided by 2 is equal to 0, if the modulus of 2 is equal to 0, it means that the element is even, then displayed. Otherwise, increment. So from 0 to n, every element will be taken and checked. If it is divisible by 2, it is printed. Otherwise, incremented. That is how even numbers are printed. So I'm giving you tasks for every group. So VW group has to do this question and show me today evening. And MW group, interchange the largest and smallest element in the array. And the last group, you have to find second last element in array. Okay, you just write the program and you have to explain me the logic. You can do it by tomorrow. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.